So I would like to give you a quick introduction to what's happening here. And one of the things that are going to happen here is a lot of introductions. I'm going to start with introducing myself to those, and there are still a few who don't know all of me. It's actually, the week is my birthday gift to myself. On Friday is my birthday. And I grew up in the advertising business professionally. It was an exciting industry by then. I stumbled across TED in 2006, and things happened that made me a TEDxAmbassador, working for being involved in over 100 TEDx events. And the founder of the TEDx program, Laura Stein, went to Singularity University to start a global rollout there as well. And she invited a few TEDx organizers to go there. And I participated at one of their programs, and my feedback was, it's a great program, but terrible speakers. And that got me into being their faculty coach, which helped me understand this concept of exponential organizations and the difference between a linear and an exponential mindset, where I'm going to go into the next 40 minutes-ish before we start the session with Shannon. I founded the Innovation Agency Network, which is just an umbrella brand for the things that are happening. My school of talk is public speaking. When I work with speakers, I hear from them what they're going to share before they go on the stage, before an audience listens, before press listens, before press prints something in the media, before people read the media. So I have this very privileged life of being constantly involved and connected in conversation, interaction with people who see things others don't. And that steers me up and gears me up with the Silicon Valley or the Global Inspiration Tours, to not only curate conversations, but also help the participants connect dots with adding insights, thoughts, visions, ideas, foresight that I personally acquired in the past 5 to 6 years. A friend of mine called me the business therapist because I am really passionate about helping industries, individuals, leaders, companies go back to understanding what they're actually really good at, to explore a new path, to see themselves on a new journey into this totally crazy future we're staying in. So this is a quick of an introduction from myself, but you guys are going to introduce yourself 10 times throughout this week. And this might be a hustle, this might be weird and annoying and boring because you feel like, hey, I've said this before 10 times, and the other, depending on how many participants we're going to have in the room, will have heard that already before, or also 8, 9, whatever, 6 times. And it will feel weird for you, but the person we're meeting who's going to speak will hear this for the first time. So I'm going to give you a quick framework on introducing yourself. And I'm trying this out for the first time, so forgive the bumpiness of this introduction. It's an experiment, but that's how the world goes. I'm constantly experimenting with things. So we start with the experiment of introduction. And that goes pretty much like giving you a framework that starts with, you know how, and then you address the people's problem, and then they're struggling and you talk about the pain factor, and then you end with where you come into play. And this is how their life is after you've met with them or they've met with you. Just to give you an example, this is how I introduce myself or would introduce myself in that framework. You know how people are reading business books, attending conferences and webinars, and then they are struggling to convert all the good theory into practice. I give people actionable insights so their transformation can begin the same day. And if that makes sense for you, I'm giving you this framework again, and I'm going back to the Zoom main window because I want to work, your guys are enough people for a breakout session. And I want you to practice this. I want you to, I'm giving you 2 minutes. 2 minutes should be fine. And I want you to use this framework to introduce yourself. Maybe you want to take a screenshot of this because once you're in the breakout rooms, you might not see that one. So how was that for you? And you just,
it's really hard for me.
Helpful?
Helpful, but it's really hard.
Okay. So let's do it over. Tyler.
Sure. One of the main problems I see with the architecture and construction industry is that
how. You always start with you know how. I'm strict here.
Fair enough. Okay. You know how the built environment isn't typically designed with the actual end user in mind or serving the purposes of the people who end up using the space. And the construction and design industry are struggling to make optimized design as the primary focus and incentive to do the work and deliver the projects that they work on. And I think a reframing to from the project level scale to a product level scale and focusing on the actual occupant of the building is a critical reframing to make them really prioritize good design and ultimately deliver better buildings.
Really good. Did you all make a screenshot of this?
Yep.
Because I want to encourage you not to use the same phrase every time you introduce yourself. I want to encourage you to experiment. Here's a little behind the scenes from public speaker training, from speaker coaching. There are different archetypes. There are different types of people who have different attention reaction when you talk to them. Some feel physical pain if you talk too much. They want you to come straight to the point. Others want to understand the process, because if you come straight to the point, they would believe that this is just a matter of luck and you're not trustworthy because now you were lucky. But will you be lucky again next time? There's no process, so I don't trust you. Others want to hear from you about your hobbies, your personal, your individual, you as a human, because otherwise they think you only want their money. And if you have 40 minutes of their time, you might only spend 10 minutes talking about the deal and 30 minutes talking about you as a person and how you have things in common. And you can see already that that person is totally different to the person who feels physical pain if you talk too much. And the fourth person, and it's just very rough, but these are 4 archetypes, and working with these 4 archetypes is really helpful. The fourth person is the person who can't listen too long. They always want to talk. They don't want to listen to you, they want to talk. So you give them some facts so they can make the assumption. And they can basically say what you wanted to say. And it's not about if you're saying it or that person is saying it, it's about that it's put into the room. Because it's not about ego when you're giving a talk or when you're introducing yourself, when you're someone in the room. The more you put the ego out of the equation, the better the conversation is. So I would encourage you to experiment with these 4 archetypes. Sometimes you go straight to the point. Other times you give it some flowers and aspects and shape and feeling. Sometimes you go more into the process, and then you just give them facts, so they can make their own conclusion. If that makes sense for you. But that's already a good, useful introduction, I guess, to practice this for this week. Yeah, how about you? You're muted.
So I was in the pre-conversation with Taylor already. So what is the problem? What I see is that our organization has the big topics to get this DevOps stuff in running, to have this feedback rounds, and also to see the customer in the center, to deliver to the customers. So this is a huge problems in organizations like ours, where IT is already since, let's say 100 of years, but a couple of years already there with legacy and all this new stuff which are coming from container perspective. And yeah, our pain is there to get this mind shift from the peoples to focus on that errors are working if you discuss and have these feedback rounds. And this is one of my main challenges what I have there. And I hope I get something out of this week as well, to how other people's working on these same issues. So that's what I want to get out of this.
Let me try something, and you can say this is totally wrong. I'm totally fine. You don't have to take what I offer. It's always a suggestion, and I'm super fine with saying, okay, this is stupid. How about, how people actually don't have an idea what IT is really doing? Because from history, they perceive IT as plugging computers to the wall. But we have this, we can actually give the company a chance to start get smart on data, and introducing the company to a whole new world and give them a whole new perspective on what's actually possible with the resources that they have available. Does it make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that sometimes you go into the people's problem, but the problem can also be a misperception, right? Because IT departments, from historical point of view, were not information technology departments. They were plugging in hardware, right? They were connecting, they were creating an infrastructure. But now IT is about information, and information is data, and data informs future decisions. But that's a mindset that a lot of organizations just have to acquire. And that's also what I'm working for and what I'm trying to help people understand. This is what I'm passionate about, that when you acquire the mindset of a data company, you go in completely different directions than when you just continue what you've always been good at. But that's something I'm going to share a little later. Gabriele, how about you? How did that work for you? Tell me how you know how. You're muted. And we're such a small group, you can just stay unmuted.
So now it should work. I was together with Marcus and help me.
V.
Yeah.
V.
Okay. Okay. People who come to my business coachings are usually women, and usually they struggle in their business environment that they look too much on their weaknesses instead of their strengths. And that's part of my job, to open their mind and to encourage them to get feedback from others and to think in other ways, so that at the end of the day they can use their full potential and work and grow and be happy.
Okay, that's great. Let me try for you as well. And again, if it doesn't make sense for you, please throw it at me. It's really okay to say no, Niki. I can take this, and this is an open and safe environment here. So here is how I would try to do this. You know how female entrepreneurs focus more on the weaknesses and prejudices of other, maybe male in the industry, than what they can really achieve with their skills and their potentials. And then they're struggling to focus their energy on moving on instead of focusing their energy on getting away from their fears and worries instead of on moving on what they're really good at. And this is where I come into play to help them look at what they're good at from a different perspective.
Great, Niki. Thank you very much.
I don't know, right? It's just played around. As I said before, we're going to have 9 more introductions. 1 you've already done, and that's a good format of playing around with it. How about you, V?
All right. You know how organizations collect all the data in the world and struggle to make sense of it? I help them by using their data and answering challenging questions and generating actionable insights.
Amazing. Love it. Nothing to add. Marcus, this is new for you. I never tried that before. How do you like that framework?
I'm struggling.
Good. Give it a shot.
I'm going to try a different one.
Whatever is good for you.
So you know how actually we all think that education should be much, much better than it currently is. And we went down the route of saying, all right, so let's make new school buildings at least be good places and somehow reflect where the world should be. And then I realized that a lot of teachers have got no idea where the world is. So after creating much, much, much better buildings, I then realized actually the problem is that teachers just don't know enough. And so kids don't know enough. So I started working with kids. And now what I do is I take teachers and kids to meet people who are doing fantastic stuff in the world. And now they realize that actually the difference between success and failure is attitude and of learning new stuff really quickly rather than just passing exams.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I like it. I love it. You can also shortcut it. Yeah. You can also do things like, you know how people are having the same conversation over 20 years and nothing is changing? Like in the education system. And they're struggling to actually find the right point to look at, the right direction to look at, and experimenting with stuff, or maybe not really experimenting with stuff.
Hang on, slow down, I'm taking notes.
And
stop, slow down, I'm taking notes.
Yeah, sure. So you know how people are having the same conversation over 25 years, like for education. And then they're struggling, starting with looking at the right point to start with. They're changing the infrastructure, they're improving the buildings, the setups of the classes. But actually, I realized that the biggest problems of education system are the teachers. So I've decided to work with the students directly to better understand how the teacher 2.0 could look like. I don't know if that makes sense.
I thought that was not bad, actually.
Okay.
I'll give you three out of 10 for that one.
Say again?
3 out of 10. Okay, 4 out of 10.
Yeah, we're gonna experiment with that. I'm seriously encouraging you to stick to this. You're gonna have a chance for the next time in 28 minutes.
Yeah, it's good structure.
Martin.
Yeah, actually, I'm struggling with the question why people don't take innovation not serious enough. So, yeah, I think it's clear enough for.
So, when you go into the you know how framework, you can try again with, you know how everyone is talking about innovation, inspiration, and it is turned into a buzzword. So no one actually really knows what it means and what it is. And I'm trying to build an infrastructure and a framework and a mindset for people to find their own definition for innovation and inspiration, to personally grow and be successful with their endeavors. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but maybe the question behind is not a personal question. In my case, it's more or less an organizational question. Because when I see companies, they won't change and they do maybe always the same thing. But when you see trends and different developments, they actually have to change. And I don't know why they don't change early enough. Yeah? But I think sometimes the pain is not big enough for change, but if they not change early enough, it's maybe too late.
Let's leave it like that and play around with it. I'm sure you're gonna find a good package in that framework. And if you alter the framework, it's good, but I really push you to being in that framework first, and then you find your own vocabulary. But it's always good to start with something that's fixed, and then you find your own whole setting of introducing, where you go through this journey, because you go into the you place, like the person you're talking to, and the problems they have, and then you go into the me place. Then you go into what you're doing about it. And very often people do it the other way around. They go like, I am the person you've been waiting for, blah, blah. Okay, so that's a good crisp framework. Indra, how about you?
It's really hard for me. I was thinking, and I help people to understand how much cost comfort in your work environment, because I usually now I'm counting how much cost this HVAC systems and electrical part and also security systems. But I think I will overwrite this a little bit in different side of view for the future.
Okay, good. Yeah, I guess I have to hear it a few times to get into this, because I'd rather say nothing now than go in a fully wrong direction. But I hear it's a little tricky, but it's also somewhere in the direction as, you know, how people are looking to the things they want, the things they have, and taking the cost out of the equation, and then they stumble across financial chaos, or I don't know.
You know, I can explain a little bit. When you're building, for example, build a new house, for example, a huge house, of course, and you need to understand how much you need to have money for this electrical things, and also this HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. So I count all the parts, how much does it cost. So I need to understand the system and how it works.
Okay, so very often this also works if you give a scenery that everyone can relate to. You know how people go to the grocery store with a list, milk, butter, bread, and then they go home with a shopping cart that's overpacked and a $50 ticket or $50 check. This is the same with a lot of financial decisions of everyone in the world. They have their plans, but then as long as they go, they don't realize everything they add also adds to the financial planning. And I help them being clear with that. I don't know, somewhere in that direction. Sometimes when it's complicated, it's also helpful just to draw a picture everyone can relate to. And how we go shopping, I guess that's something that everyone can relate to, right? You have your few items on the shopping list, and then you go through the aisles and you take so much more than you actually plan to do. And this is a parallel that you can also see with what you just shared. And from there, where people can relate and understand what you're talking about, you can go into the details. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Cool. How did you like that? Was it good? We spend so much time introducing ourselves, and I sometimes have the feeling that when people are talking about someone else, they get more excited than when they're talking about themselves. And when people introduce themselves, they feel like, I'm already bored introducing myself to you by my own words. But that's how you can get people excited. That's how you can convey your passion, how you're burning for what you're doing. So I think that the introduction is crucial, and get comfortable with this is a huge gift.